Yo.
In this video, we will be taking a look at one of the many projects that I worked on in 2021, and that project is the Olympics. So where I live, there are two major television stations, and I was contracted by the one that got the rights to air the Olympics on their network. So let's dig into some of what I worked on and give you some insight into my process. Now, with commercial projects, there are times when I have to use commercial tools, and I'm an open source guy, so I'm a bit sad when I have to do that. But depending on the project and who my client is, as well as the time that I've been given to complete a project, I kind of have to give and take with these things. So it was decided that the name of the local segment for the Olympics was to be Tokyo Dreams. Now, you might be wondering, why not just call it the Olympics 2020? Well, because technically the television station doesn't own that title, and it would be confusing when it airs on local TV. You wouldn't be able to tell whether it's the television station that planned and traveled to Tokyo to broadcast the entire event, or whether they just got the rights to show it on their local station. Alright, so anyway, Tokyo Dreams, Tokyo 2020. And for those of you watching in the future, the 2020 Olympics actually took place in 2021. And we all know the reason why that is so. If you don't, you could just Google the events of late 2019 going into 2020 and even 2021. Let's move on to the breakdown of some of the things that I worked on. So here's a short version of the list. I had to design a logo, create an intro, create a virtual set, design a table for the physical set that wasn't even used, and a bunch of other stuff that I leave out so that I won't have to make a lengthy video. So first off the list is the logo, and here are the initial ideas that I came up with. And of course they aren't that exciting, but I'm not a graphic designer, nor do I claim to be. The initial idea that I got from the creative director was to have a brush strokey feel for the word Tokyo, and then everything else should pretty much fall into place. So based on the feedback that I got on these concepts, I went on to explore this one right here. Most of the exploring, however, went into me trying to decide on a font to use for the word dreams. Now it says dream right here, but there was this whole debate on whether it was supposed to be dream versus dreams. So there's a whole story there, but I won't get into that. And there was also this concept where I was trying to include some Japanese architecture, including the Tokyo Tower, and yeah, it didn't work. So moving on. And here's the final logo. You decide whether it's good or bad. As I said before, I'm not a graphic designer, but this is what they went with. And I also did a horizontal one that, if you look closely, and this actually happened entirely by accident, but if you look on the illustration in the circle and the letter T, it looks like someone passing something to someone else, like maybe a baton, which I will say was a happy little accident. And no thought at all went into that. It just sort of happened. So that's pretty cool. Well, that's it for the logo. Let's move on to important documents and files that were sent to me. Here we have some AI data files, which I won't get into. Next, we have the Olympics Tokyo 2020 logo in black and white and also in color. Pretty standard stuff. And I also got the logo for the Paralympic Games, but unfortunately I didn't do much work there. I wish I had gotten a chance to, but I didn't. So next we have the official Tokyo 2020 font, and this apparently was custom made for the games. So that is pretty awesome. And I should look into creating my own fonts. I think that would be pretty cool, right? Next, here we have the brand document, which you should expect when working with large as well as established companies. So the brand document pretty much outlines how to use various things associated with the brand. Example, the logo. It tells you what colors to use and what colors not to use, how to use the logo on various backgrounds, how not to alter the logo in any way, shape, or form, or else you'll be fired, thrown into jail, or forcibly exiled from society for the rest of your life. You know, the usual stuff. Oh, let me share this though. I wanted to animate Mirai Toa, but sadly time didn't permit that, and also anything that I decided to do, I had to send that off to be evaluated by the Olympics committee before getting the okay. And in TV they say time is money, so I didn't have the time for all that. I think it would have been awesome. And the final document is the brand activation guideline for broadcast partners, which is a document that tells the television station how the brand is to be depicted in promotional material and other stuff, of course. Okay, so with the logo done, it was time to create the intro for the show. So we had a meeting, and I really don't remember everything, but I do remember there being talks about having ink blots. So that was in the discussion, and to make it have somewhat of an old Japanese feel or something like that. Although I do find meetings boring, so there are times when I don't pay much attention, but you don't do that with your clients, please. You know, that's not a good thing to do. So yeah, to get some inspiration, I went onto YouTube and I found this tutorial that I really liked. And luckily for me, there were ink blots used and were provided in the description of the video. So I didn't have to create my own or purchase them. I'll post the link for the tutorial, well, for that tutorial in the description for this video. So this is what I came up with. Now you won't hear any sound because, well, I don't own the music and I don't want to get a copyright strike. It will be up on my Patreon, so you can see it there if you would like. So yeah, the tutorial was the main inspiration, and following the same Japanese ink blot theme, I used some Japanese elements such as illustrations of various things that you'd find in Japan. It was during this process that I decided, you know, it would be cool to associate a color and an illustration with each clip or event. So for example, we have an illustration of a fish. The color is blue to represent the ocean, and the event complements that, which is swimming. Even though this was the first version of the intro, I was thinking that, well, if I run out of time, then we'll just have to work with this one. But then the company also required a promotional video to promote the event. And fun fact, I liked the promotional video that I created so much that I decided to alter it and use that as the intro instead. So this is what I call intro 2. Here you'll notice that we have Usain and Veronica, well, for those of you that watch track and field and stuff, to start off the video. And it worked really well, I would say, but I removed them from the final video. If you want to know why, then you'll have to watch that video on my Patreon. Here's the final version without audio. Alright, that's it for the intro. The next thing that I worked on was the virtual set, but that video will also be posted on Patreon, so if you're interested in seeing that, you can head over there. And also, if you like what I do and want to support me, you can become a patron. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is what I learned from doing this project. And what I learned is that if you eat your vegetables, you'll grow up to be big and strong. Well, that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, Kemadi.